for that. I appreciate how much time you had to put into breaking that all down I'm not a math person. I can just tell you that we're not gonna get enough money and there's gonna be consequences for it. And just to reiterate, dear Governor Hochul and dear elected officials, 3% is not enough. Go back and do better. That is the message that the community needs to send to the people that they put in office who, for better or worse, are not showing up for our kids. But thank you so much for that, because it really helps to break it down for this sucks. I don't need a master's degree to tell you it sucks. I don't like it. I'm not mad at the administrators. I'm not mad at anybody having to make the decisions at this level, because we're left with a dumpster fire and we don't have a choice. And that is, in layman's terms, the situation that we're in. And it's awful. Thank you for that, because that is hugely helpful, and I hope anybody watching this goes back, rewind it again, because let's go through it again. Because it's really, really important, and I appreciate that you did that.
Yeah.
I'm going to thank you as well. I'm okay at math, but different math. And translating all of this into, which I feel like here you're also really good at doing that, translating this into what it means. And I have a lot of opinions about how we got to this point that I don't need to share right now, but to say that you know, the time that Adam kind of spends running the numbers and again, breaking that down into, we would need 5% on top of anything else, is what keeps me up at night. Is I'm thinking about next year, and I'm thinking about, the input that we get from the folks who come up and talk to us, who are not us. And I know, like, the experience that my kids have had so far, and the folks that we talk to on lobby day. And I'm not in love with what next year is going to look like when I look at what's up there, and recognize that that is with all of Carrie's magic that you can do. But when I look at 2 years from now and 3 years from now, is what keeps me awake at night, that my mind goes to what are the solutions, and I don't know what those are yet. And I'm hoping that between some kind of lobbying and I don't know, some kind of engagement, community engagement, political engagement, any kind of, I understand that there are a handful, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, there were a couple of items that came through in the one house budgets that were some of the stuff that kind of raised caps on reimbursements. There's an extent to which it feels a little bit like nickel and diming, but I will take whatever we can get at this point. But some combination of those kinds of things, where freeing up monies that might not have been available, that were available on paper, right, that were not available as actual money. If you want to.
Well, one big one that's in, I can't remember which house, is that they want to incrementally increase the cap on the CTE salaries that we get aided on. So even though it won't show up in our foundation aid, the CTE programs through the BOCES, what they want to do, the salary cap has been $30,000 for a year. So all the teachers in BOCES programs, we only get aided on the first $30,000 of their salary. They want to incrementally bring it up. I think it was only like 60, 65, something like that. So even just getting the extra aid on that $30,000 for all the CTE teachers would help us out in our BOCES aid. So there are a couple of little smaller things like that other than foundation aid. Foundation aid is obviously the big one, but that is another one that would definitely help us.
And so, just where I'm going with, for my part, is that, if I as a board member have to swallow what I'm looking at, and even swallowing recognizes that we're digging into our savings, and that never feels good. I don't like to do it at my house. We had to do that, several years ago. We came on a little bit of a tough time. We had some savings, we could do it, but we knew that it was finite. And we knew, we could sort of see how to get out of it. And, you know, I sort of see the potential ways to get out of it, but it's, you know, obviously it's a way bigger scale than just my own household, and it's, you know, it's everyone's children. And so I will swallow this for 24, 25. Who knows what's coming for 25, 26, but, you know, kind of keep pounding on all those. You know, if they address foundation aid, that I can't tell now anymore if it's lip service, that, you know, they want to fix foundation aid. Formula, sorry, yep. You know, it's hard to tell what's real and genuine and doable versus from us what we want to hear. But I for one will sort of keep pounding on that door, and we'll ask everybody else to keep pounding on that door as well. I know, like, NICET helps pound on the door, and anybody else who can do that too would be welcome to join it. So, yeah.
The legislators said when they were here, there is power in numbers, so everybody who knocks on their door, sends a letter, sends an email, they said preferably not the form ones, but I think even that's valid, so, yeah, everybody who continues to push, because unfortunately, this is nothing new, and it's just keeps wearing away at our fantastic program that we have here.
Well, and again, that was the other thing I wanted to point out, is that, you know, part of the, it's not even predictive, but part of the pickle is that we're dedicated to giving our students a really top-notch program. Like if we said, yeah, well, you know, we'll hit all the basic things, and we'll, you know, our kids are doing average, we've done our job. We could probably save a lot of money if that was our outlook. It is not, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that that's the outlook of anybody in this room, to shoot for our kids to sort of be, well, you know, as long as we're just like a little bit better than everybody else in the state, then we're fine. And that's not acceptable to me. I don't think it's acceptable to Jim or these guys, and so that's part of the problem. Not part of the problem. That's the balancing act. That's the challenge. The balancing act is to actually provide, you know, our kids are performing well above averages in so many ways. We just got something from Keith talking about how the kids in the high school are just doing so well. They just had a Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday at AMS. You know, the kids came out really positively from that, and so, you know, that's the sort of the head of the pin, is to provide that kind of programming on a shoestring. And I think we're just gonna keep trying to do that for as long as we can. Because that, you know, go big or go home, right? Do it right or don't bother, my dad used to say. And that's so, I'm gonna rant now. If anybody else would like to rant, now is your time. Okay. Any other? Was it? Yeah. If you do have questions now, the next time we meet, which will be April 9th, not the day of the vacation. So thank you for putting that slide up. All right, so here we are, March 25th budget session. April 9th is when we vote to accept the budget as is, and then that will determine the numbers that goes out to the voters. So if you have questions, now's the time.
My question is, so I guess we're going to presume with the 2% budget that you're wanting? Is that the way we're going to vote on? Or, I mean, because we presented several, so over the time frame.
Yeah, so we're the budget is built on 2% foundation aid. If it's less than that, we have to take out more reserves. If it's more than that, we'd use less reserves.
Okay, so there's no hard numbers, it's just that's kind of the game plan, okay.
Yeah. I mean, if something happens quickly, we could always come back and look at it. But given that timeline here, We don't know where, unless the state acts and acts quickly. If it's something dramatically different up or down, then we can certainly adjust before the magic date there, but the budget has to be adopted on April 9th, so.
Michelle, do you want him to go to the slide? You have a slide that shows like it has what the 2.99%, the tax cap number.
Yeah, I wrote it all down.
Okay,
So I was just
sure.
making sure we weren't, because I know they had presented on the 3.
All right, if you're good, just,
I was just gonna say, I'm volunteering at the Sienna pre-law mentoring event on the 9th, which is the date change for the board meeting. I won't be here. So I just, even though I obviously won't be here to vote, I just want to say that I'm in support of it, given what we're dealing with.
I was gonna say if you're good, if we are satisfied with that discussion, we will move to our public comment period. For items on the agenda, but I have no issues. So we will move quickly. Is there something you need to, that was great. Catching emotions. Yeah, we'll go over to approval of our minutes from March 11, 2024. Megan first, motion to approve. Jess Z makes a motion second to approve the minutes of March. March 11, 2024. Any discussion? No. Hearing none. All those in favor? Those against? Any abstentions? That would be Adam abstaining. That passes. Yeah, I need a motion to approve a memorandum of agreement by and between Averill Park Central School District and APTA regarding extra. I didn't see who was with that. Adam and then Jackie. I was like, I just thought, maybe it's what it was. Any discussion on that? No? Okay, all those in favor of approving? Any against? None? That passes unanimously. Okay, I just need a motion to pass our consent agenda, business, personnel, and special education. Motion, Adam is first, second, Megan, discussion. Adam.
Going to beat Jesse to the punch and thank the Averill Park alumni for funding the Kathy Tworick Scholarship. Also, I want to point out Colleen Graham, taking the words right out of your mouth, aren't I? Colleen Graham is leaving after 31 years with AP, so I hope she does better in retirement than I did. And then I have a question. In 8D, we have a fund balance report. And this question for Jim, I think, who will quickly field it to Carrie. It seems to predict more than a 1.5 million surplus above the 4% allowable level. It doesn't seem like we're planning on applying all of that to next year's budget, so there must be a good reason. Can you clarify, am I reading this right? Is that what we're predicting?
I could answer, but I'd like to give Carrie a chance to perhaps give it a shot. I'll let her, yes, you're on the clock.
Yep, so we are not applying it all towards next year's budget, and the reason is we're increasing our reliance on fund balance up to 3.4% of the budget. So we're starting to get to a level where you don't want to go that much higher than that, because then you talk about the sustainability of the next few years and how that might impact us not being as sustainable, or the reasonableness of applying the fund balance. Money left over above the 4% will likely put into some reserves, some that we're using towards the budget to hopefully extend the life of those reserves longer, and probably some towards our capital project that we're planning currently for our next vote. So that particular project, I think we mentioned, has a lot of site work, so there's limited aid on that project. So in order for us to get done what we need to have some monies in reserves to help keep the cost of that project low for our local taxpayers.
Cool, thank you, makes sense.
Good job, Carrie. An important point, though, is on the capital project, as Tony brought up. We had a meetings since then. Whereas this project is mostly eatable, because of the nature of this project, a lot of like parking lots, for example, there's gonna be less aid on it. So in this example, if we had a $28 million project, we probably got aid on about probably 24, 25 million, if I remember correctly. This project, for that same 28 million, we may only get aid on 14 million or 15 million. So it's going to increase that cost, right? Because some things are aidable and some things are not. A lot of the work in this one potentially is going to be not aidable. So it is important to keep that in mind, because that's just going to get involved with the tax cap and the percentage that we can go up, and if a higher number, it still isn't a cap, but it's still a higher number like this year. So we're trying to balance all that too.
I liked Carrie's answer better.
Fair enough.
That you guys are honest. I just want to say one personal word about Colleen Brim, that she's been a fixture for our family at PES. Probably more than, I should see her more than I see her more than I should, because of how often we do the bus. But seriously, this woman is, you know, she always has a cheerful word. She gets the job done. Whatever sort of chaos is going on at home, she sort of rolls with it. And I personally, we got one more year at PES, and it's gonna be a little weird to show up in the morning at PES and not see Miss Grimm there. That's a tricky one for me. But fair winds to Miss Grimm. All right, we haven't voted on this consent agenda yet. Shall we? All those in favor? And that unanimously passes. Okay. Action items. 11A, I need a motion to approve the school district calendar for 24-25 school year. Just a motion to. Megan first. And then as a second, discussion. Yes.
I actually just have some questions and then, kind of a response. So in the new calendar, there's a lot of symbols, which is actually very helpful, with the key, but so at the bottom, if more than 4 emergency days are used, the district will either use remote instruction days or will be taken from April recess in this order, April 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. So I guess 2 questions. One, why are we considering remote instruction as an option at all? And then 2, how are you gonna decide that?
Carrot? No. Matt? No, again, kidding. So the change coming out of this calendar is with, consistent with what we've been doing the last couple of years, post-COVID, when we had the ability to do remote instruction. The state came out with a ruling saying that you could count the remote instruction days towards your 180 days of attendance. So what we try to do is incorporate that, but do it wisely. So what we have said is if we have a regular snow day, so it's, December, we haven't used any days yet, we're not going to go to remote instruction at that point. We're going to use a snow day as a snow day. I absolutely remember when we made that decision, it was probably the most
Group, because I appreciate all the effort that went into it. I was half kidding about the key. I really appreciate all the, it's hard to keep track of what the different things are. But I guess I don't even want it to be an or. I mean, I understand that or means it will be one or the other, and generally speaking, I mean, I have full trust in the administration. It's not that, it's just, I don't want remote learning to be an option because I don't think it's an effective tool.
So you would prefer that to be strict?
I just want remote learning to go away in general, and if we use all the snow days, we don't have, whatever the calendar committee decides we do with whatever days we lose.
Jen.
So while I appreciate what you're saying about remote learning, because my kids did horrible during that time of COVID and everything, I think giving the district the discretion to do the and or is appropriate, because I think that they're only going to go to that model in an extreme situation where they know in advance that this might happen. And I think it will be maybe one day. It's not gonna be a prolonged thing unless it's a pandemic or something like that. I think one day isn't going to make or break anybody's educational, in my opinion. And one day is not gonna really hurt anybody, I don't think, to be a remote day. That's my opinion. But I just think giving them the option is okay. And again, it's an extreme case. I don't think we're going to just say, oh, we're gonna go remote because we don't wanna do this.
We did last year.
One time, right?
We went remote for 1 day or 2, I can't remember.
I don't remember. When we did this, I had all that data. I had a number of studies we've used over the last X number of years. We looked at all that, we determined the number. I don't remember offhand, to be honest with you.
So if you guys are good, I'll just chime in with my 2 cents. I do recall that we've had, over the last couple of years, we've had a couple of prep for remote, which didn't happen, right? With, a lot of the kids were, it was like well ahead of time, and the kids were sort of kind of built up to it, and, at least my kids, I don't know if it's because they like to think that they are older than they are. They like the idea of like walking around with folders and feeling important. So they came home and were like, okay, if we go remote, we're gonna do this. And so and they're older, right? So I'm sure if they were kindergarten, well, they probably would have done kindergarten too. Right, they're like 13 going on 30, right? But they were prepped for it, and then it didn't happen. And as I recall, just the decision-making process was not taken lightly. There was back and forth, Jim, again, my brain is always ready for specifics, but there was sort of a, we have this option, we could go remote, we could take a day if we, so it was a very carefully considered process. Keeping in mind a lot of the stuff you brought up. So what like the research that you're talking about, like, and especially the differential like in impacts to different families was not absent from the conversation. And so the sort of, not just trust, I want to say trust, but the trust that's been built up with this administration in terms of their decision making assuages some of my concerns. Because I do, I've read that research too, and a lot of families that I work with in my job are at the very, very extreme where a conversation like this couldn't even happen because remote instruction, it's just not, that capability is 100% not there for a lot of the kids the families that my boss works with. And this conversation couldn't even happen because you would never put that as an option because if you know exactly what the outcome would be. And so there is more nuance. It goes back to what I was saying before, that we do have sort of a standard that we're expecting of our kids and the support that we give them to try and do that. I'm comfortable with this as is, again, recognizing that if that decision kind of has to come about, that what you're talking about just does formulate part of the decision-making process as to which way to go. And I get that like it's a full stop, chuck it out the window. But I agree with Doug that having that in the arsenal, that tool in the arsenal is, potentially.
Can I?
Yeah.
I just have, I just have a question, because Jim said he had the data for the number of snow days that we've used over the last several years. How many years have we exceeded for?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
This has been a long time. I have a file on this. I don't know about him.
Oh, okay. I thought you had said that you had it there.
I had.
I apologize.
Yeah, I don't have it memorized. I haven't looked at it.
I'm sorry.
I don't.
Do you,
The other part of this too that we've done is, remember, we now have the state of emergency days, which allow us to, if a state of emergency is declared by any official, local or state, then we don't have to
Make up that day.
declare it a day. I'm trying to go through some emails real quickly, just as I'm listening. And it's all blurring for me.
I had 2 of those in March last year.
Of last year, right? Yeah.
Well,
So, like, for example, the county executive declared a state of emergency on Saturday. Right, so,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't take much, because obviously it was deserved, right? We had roads down and power outages, but that was a one-day storm. If we were in school that day, if Saturday was Tuesday, and it was declared a state of emergency by even the county executive at the county level, then it's not a day we have to make up.
Okay.
So there's a number of snow days, and then there's a number of emergency days, and then there's a number of emergency days that are not declared state of emergency by a local or state official. So
Okay.
that number has gone up over the last, again, it's all blurring for me, I think the last couple of years that we've had it. So
Okay. Well,
That-
and
that factors
I clarified for my own self why we would go 14th and up, because not that I didn't know the week, but I always struggle with where Easter falls. So because of Good Friday, so
I was gonna add that too. Next week, next year's calendar, we
it's
took
the
that into
week
account.
ahead.
Typically, relatively speaking, this year, for example, this week, we have Good Friday as a day off. The BOCES, Cap Region, Questar, and the third, usually they kind of combine the calendars, because you try to have the same spring break, because if not, you have staff, working in one district and having vacation while their kids are at school in another. So we don't have much control, we can always change it, but we always try to follow it, obviously. Next year's calendar, Good Friday is embedded in vacation week. So that's why we went with, from the Monday to the Friday as opposed to the Friday to the Monday.
And so we're somewhat insulated by those emergency days that we wouldn't have to make up in the event that there's a state of emergency declared. We're somewhat insulated there. Here's the thing, I absolutely detested remote learning. I had 3 children all at home, remote learning. I had an IEP kid trying to get his services remote learning. It was hell on earth the entire time. I'm with you. I also don't like some of the post-COVID things where assignments are now due on Saturdays by midnight and things like that. That was something that I've struggled with. So I would agree with you that I don't think remote learning would be an option. That being said, I do trust that all appropriate and possible avenues would be exhausted before that is employed. As it relates to the administrators. So.
Just,
Yeah.
I just, 2 things. One is, I understand the relief that if it's a state of emergency, we don't have to stress about it as a snow day, but in my mind, that's 1 day of lost learning for the kids. When we're trying to make up for learning loss that happened during COVID. So that's actually not something that comforts me personally, because it's still 1 less day that they're in school learning. So that, I suppose it solves the problem with the remote learning because it doesn't take up a snow day. But the other thing is, do we have any idea how many kids historically, I guess it'd be hard to measure, I'm just wondering how many kids didn't log in or show up last year the day that we did remote day after we used all our snow days? Do we track that? Do you know what it is, Matt?
No, not on my head, no. But yeah, in order to have it be a day of attendance, the state requires that we take attendance on that day, so.
Do you have any idea generally?
No, I'd have to look it up, sorry.
Well, on a lighter note, I do have a question about the calendar. Why do we start on a Thursday? It's totally just a random question, but I mean, I'm just curious, is it because you do the,
But then it's fell off the mountain, so. If we are all satisfied with the discussion, I can call a vote. We have satisfied with the discussion. All those in favor of accepting this calendar, approving this district calendar for 24-25, all those in favor? Any against? And any abstentions? No, that's all of us. So it does, it passes, and thanks for the discussion for the student. Yep, no, I mean, there's a lot. Okay, I need a motion to approve 11B, memorandum of agreement by between Averill Park Central School District and APTA regarding retiree health insurance for married couples. Jess Z first, Adam seconds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. 11C, need a motion to approve to accept the merger between the Tri-City School District, Averill Park Central School District, Brunswick Central School District, and welcome East Greenbush Central School District to form a girls swimming and diving team varsity junior levels. Authorization for the superintendent to execute the cooperative agreement. Jackie and Megan, any comments, questions? Megan, then someone else, and then Michelle.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Michelle, then Megan.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's just more a lack of knowledge. So when this happens, I guess we assume, like, we just split the cost of that program, or how does that work? Is it just 50-50? Is it percentage based on enrollment in it, or? I'm assuming there's some cost to joining together, savings, right?
We do split, I don't know.
It's definitely split.
As if there's a cost savings benefit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And in this case, we don't have either a pool or an ice rink. So those are the two that we do, the swimming and the hockey. So that was a reason for
It's a lot
that.
cheaper for us than.
Yeah. So
Not
we've
in the
had
budget this year.
a few kids. So we do have a share in the cost for coach and uniforms and fees and, yeah.
I'm just curious how it works, that's all.
Well, and it might be worth clarifying that is this now just with the two schools, three schools?
Everything but East Green.
So East Greenbush is joining.
Oh, so we already know.
We already have,
Okay.
yeah.
It's just because East Greenbush is joining from the section's point of view, it was a merger. So it didn't necessarily be the same document and
Meg,
Yeah, I was just gonna say how much I love that we found a creative way to make this an opportunity for our students who wanted to be on a swim team. I love that East Greenbush, who's one of our like deepest rivals, is actually joining us in this. This is awesome. I think that's great, actually. And considering they get more funding than us, maybe they can take our share. Anyway,
Maybe they want to build
But-
a whole year.
right. But no, I just want to comment that I appreciate the creative way that we're creating opportunities for the students.
any more discussion? The only thing I'll say is best of luck to the girls swimming team. Crush it. Yeah, now, because there's a Diane and I out there somewhere.
There you go.
Okay, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Okay. Policy, I'm going to press that. 12A, this is the second reading for policy 4327, homebound instruction. We had held off on, because I know Adam had some interest in it, and go ahead, Adam.
I make a motion to accept this policy as written.
Do I have a second? Jess, Dean Peachtree. Any discussion? I believe the input was well founded and responded to, and changes made, thank you, Kim. All right, all those in favor of accepting policy 4327, homeland instruction as is, that is unanimous. Just your hand. Okay, resolutions. I need 13A, a motion to approve recognition of the Administrative Support Employees Association's collective bargaining unit as per attached. And Jackie and Megan seconds. Discussion? Okay with that. All those in favor? That is unanimous. I need a motion to approve the SECO resolution involving upgrades and renovations to existing facilities at Algonquin Middle School, consisting of purchase and installation of security enhancements at the middle school, and any related work. Jackie and Megan. seconds, any discussion? We just need to say yes. We do. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. I was going to pass it along while we are at 1213C, I have a motion to approve the proposition to be sent, to be presented to the voters at the annual meeting of such voters, to be held on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, regarding school buses and utility vehicles. I need a motion. Megan, and second by Adam, and discussion on school buses on proposition. Jess, or Adam, you guys sort of did a thing at the same time. Adam and Jess.
Just Jim, or more likely Carrie. Can you remind me of the, what percentage is aidable and what the sort of payback schedule is for buses?
Carrie?
It's about 71% aidable for the buses, but they're amortized over 5 years.
Okay,
So it's only a portion, but the way we've been replacing it, we're kind of keep the rotation going, so,
Yep.
yep.
thank you.
I kind of wanted to revisit our discussion about the electric vehicles. It's hard because we're trying to move forward and prepare for a budget vote in May, and more information is coming out and more offerings are coming out about funding. When we had spoken, I can't remember if it was the last meeting, maybe it was 2 meetings ago, about electric buses. We discussed how funding the buses without funding the infrastructure, as far as like the credits available, really didn't make sense. Just last week, they announced that now they're offering credits for the infrastructure. So I have a few questions for you. One is, I don't believe we asked this last time. We kind of discussed amongst ourselves what we thought and we were ready to vote. And I don't remember that we posed a question to Jim and to Carrie, what do you think about whether or not we should get electric vehicles now? So that's one question I have. The second question, and now more so knowing that there's also credits for infrastructure, because to go along with that, I know I'm kind of doing a 180 from my opinion two meetings ago, but does it make sense to continue to buy new vehicles, new fuel using or gas using vehicles, when we know, maybe not by 2035, but at some point in the future, it's going to be all electric? And then my third question to go along with that, I understand that we went through the budget cuts and we have to let go of the teachers and the aides, but I think that this comes from a separate part of the budget, so those are really two independent conversations. I know it's a lot of questions, but Jim / Carrie. I'm sure I'll have more after those answers, but.
Do you want to start on the technical questions? The funding?
Yeah, so it's not really a separate part of the budget. Where it would be is in the debt service, which is part of the overall budget. So the way that the currently works, like I just said, we get aid back over 5 years. So we would still get aid in the case of electric buses, but it'll be over a 12-year period. So they'll spread it out a little bit more. So it still counts within the same budget because you're going to have a debt payment, a debt in principal, because we're not going to pay cash. So for whatever we can't get a voucher for, an incentive for, we would probably bond for that and have a payback period. Typically try to line it up. We do 5-year bond payments because we get 5 years of aid. So we might have to look at doing a 12-year bond to match it up with the aid, but it would still have an annual impact within the budget. So that's fine.
Keep going.
Well, that was your third question, I think.
Yeah.
About
And I'm sorry that we didn't ask you 2 meetings ago. I think we should have, no, from a finance, because obviously you know the numbers more than me. And as I was sitting there thinking about it afterwards, it's not like we're not gonna get buses instead. And now that there's credits for infrastructure, how Adam brought up, I don't wanna lose out on credits when we know we're in a financial constraints moving forward. So I really would like to know your opinion about what makes the most sense right now.
Well, what we were looking at for the budget this year was a purchase of one bus, a charging station and a bus. I think if we start looking at the entire infrastructure, that's a much larger conversation in terms of, because when we worked with NYSEG and Mark and I did that program, they were giving us a figure of $2 million worth of infrastructure for infrastructure upgrades to do to the bus garage. So I think at that point, we have to, bring in our architects, electrical engineers and take like a look at it, because they just gave us suggested you might want to put these chargers here, they could do the drop ropes down the middle, so they laid out how they would design it. But I think if we were to move forward, to do the whole infrastructure, we need to, start bringing our electrical engineers in and get a lot more information on how to properly move forward, because we don't want to install too many things and say, you probably shouldn't have done it that way, let's reverse it and do it this way. So I think there's that
So
part of
before
it.
we take advantage of the infrastructure credit, we want to have a better understanding of what it means for our current infrastructure.
I think before we would go too far deep, I don't think buying one electric bus, you're not, it's a big deal when you start getting into the multiple, 5, 10, I think then at that point, we have I think we want to get more expert involvement. The other piece is too, there's still a lot of the concerns, like when I'm, talking with Mark Primo, our transportation supervisor, he still has a lot of the concerns that we talked about those couple board meetings ago regarding the buses. So those are still there, they haven't gone away. So that's just kind of, there's the.
So does it make sense to buy a new bus this year that is?
Diesel?
Gas, diesel?
We
Okay.
do all gas, we
Diesel,
got away from
yes,
diesel.
versus electric, what do you think financially makes the most sense? Because we all talked about it, but we didn't ask these guys.
Well, there's a financial and operational, there's two different things, right? So I think with the, I know Jesse had brought up maybe doing a fleet electrification study for at least for the infrastructure part to find out how because they would also help you map out. But the program we do is nice, they touched on it a little bit, but I don't think it went as deep as the programs when you applied for the credits of want the study to be. So we might, that would help us, especially when you get into the charging infrastructure, they give you a little bit more money if you can submit to them a finished fleet electrification study. So that's one piece of it. So it might be a good next step to lay it out. I think there still doesn't help with the, some of the operational concerns that we have though.
So would you get a bus this year or would you stick with the regular bus?
I would prefer not to get a bus this year. That's just
Okay.
my take on it.
I think in our case, we have a couple things that we have to think through, right? One is the size. There's a difference, as you said, between one bus and an entire fleet.
Right.
So,
We would buy a fleet at once anyway.
right, but as we build up to the infrastructure piece, I don't think that we at this point know our infrastructure needs, right? I think that's where that study comes into play to get more information on that.
So we can do that for next year?
I think we can start looking into, right, I know there's been some conversation about how do we keep the ball moving forward
Mhm.
without maybe getting financially as invested,
Mhm.
right? The other issue, so yeah, you have I think you put it well, right, you have the operational part of it. We have operational concerns right now. Now, is one bus gonna make it or break it? Probably not, right? We're not gonna get one bus and send it up to the top of the mountain. We're not gonna have one bus and send it on an hour field trip. So if we had one bus, we would use it wisely, right? We would solve or problem solve around the operational concerns and do the best we can on a shorter route. So there's definitely, like everything else we do, there's pros and cons, we can figure it out. And people like Mark and Carrie, Aaron, we can take on the challenge of doing it. I do think at this point, we're probably not fully ready to do it. And I think a study would help us go a long way. Not just, because we're not gonna buy 10 of them tomorrow, but I think we wanna have a longer term plan,
Mhm.
right? There are concerns about whether night can store them inside in the bus garage. There are some concerns with structure. I just think we need a little more information before we go into that, knowing that the cost is significant. I would kind of I think go along with Carrie's. I don't know if I would buy one yet. There's also an issue in that we signed the letter of intent, right? So we've already kind of,
No, and I know that's our fault, we talked about it, but only just last week is when I found out that they were offering credits for the
Right.
infrastructure, so that's why I kind of was like, we should look at this, and we didn't ask your opinion, and we should have, I think, so I'm glad that we chose her.
Just out of curiosity, and then Jess is gonna, have some more information, but the shelf life, I don't know, the working life of a bus that we would buy, of a fuel bus that we would buy today is, you told us this before, I did not.
We try to keep it about a 10-year replacement cycle.
Right.
Yep.
So
about
right
47.
now with the mandate, as of 2035, unless they push it back, so we have like 11 years.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're
So
saying,
this would be like
the last one,
the last one
potentially.
paying that. Yep, yeah, so I think the point was that you're concerned we're gonna buy something now that's gonna still have life left in it, would pay for something we can't use. But I think that the timing is such that So we'll squeak it, we'll
No,
squeak it out of
that
it.
we fleshed it out more.
Yeah. Jessica.
Yeah, so I also think a fleet electrification plan is the way to go, just because that's where I work, that's the area of my expertise, not on fleet electrification, but on energy. So I talked to the program, project manager that runs our, studies today at the office, and we would qualify for 75% of that study to be paid for by NYSERDA directly to the consultant. It's not even pass through. We don't have to lay out the money and get it back. We just need to do that. What I failed to ask him is what about, well, every study is site specific. He did say that you can get a brief studies through your utility, which it sounds like we did, but that's very generic information, and we really would want site-specific information. We want them to look at the size of our fleet, look at what the fleet, where the fleet goes, the runs of the fleet, and how to best optimize the days in over our runs over the period of time we have, knowing that the technology of the buses is going to get better. So I highly recommend that. I have some information for Carrie on specifics in terms of what the program is, and I will pass that along to her. But I believe that's really the way to go, to have that study done. And then that kind of lays out an implementation plan moving forward. That funding is available, and I did ask about the incentives for implementation, buses and infrastructure, and they said it's first come, first served basis, but it definitely will be around for a few years because we have some funding. And also, the one thing I learned is that somewhere in the proposed budget is a benefit to us if we use that Bond Act money to purchase buses. So that's pending, but it's another possibility that will help us save more money in the long run, so.
I had a clarifying question because it came up and it has come up a couple of times where currently the reimbursable for bus reimbursement is over 5 years, but they're amending that. Can you remind me again what they're amending that to for these now very, very expensive things?
12 years.
Right, so the cost of the bus is tripling and they're extending the reimbursement for the triple the cost bus 3 times as long or 2.5 times as long?
Yes.
Great, wanted to make sure that I was clear on that. I've been very consistent on this, as I frequently am on my points of view. I will say that I don't know that I was clear when I do support us doing the research necessary to know how much it's going to cost so that we can appropriately inform the community. As long as doing that study does not add additional financial burden to the district to get that information. I struggle very much with any of these things that the state demands that we do that do not result in educational enrichment or life experience enrichment of a student in this district. So for every dollar that we spend, I really look and say, have we made a kid's life better with this dollar that we spent? So yes, I think we should do a study, and the 75% reimbursable or however that is to get that study, that's great. 75% of what exactly? I'm curious what that equates out to.
25%.
Right, what is, and what is that 25% cost? Like, how much is that gonna cost us? 'Cause if it's.
$100 or?
Right. I love a
here.
coupon deal. I'm a discount shopper. I like it. But I want to be conservative about how we approach this because I don't know that it is a sustainable thing for our district operationally. And to the point of, when I hate to throw a monkey wrench into it, but what happens if, we have a weekend storm and the power's out and none of the buses charge? Like, these are all things that.
But that's what the study can help you plan for.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm advocating for a study, because there is good resources out there. And I think we're all gun shy about the electric buses because we don't know about them, but they're not as, I think some of the concerns we have are more rumor-based than fact-based. And so once Mark understands some of this, gets with some of these consultants that actually lays out the data. For example, last time we talked about the buses catching on fire. Internal combustion engines, what we drive today, catch on fire way more frequently than battery packs do. So that's the statistics, that's the fact. So, but I can understand why people are concerned because there's all these unknowns out there. It's very new. And so we just need to work through all that and we have to start somewhere.
I don't want to be misunderstood.
No, I know,
I just think that if the state was going to require this of its residents, then they should have done the research
They should
and the
be doing it,
studies.
we should have.
And it shouldn't be on our backs, and it
Right.
certainly shouldn't be on the backs of the kids.
So I just want to point out that at I think it was Ashby, he said that, it's, nothing is solid, but there are discussions now in the legislature to reflect some future flexibility.
They know
Recognizing.
it's not gonna work right now. They recognize that.
Right,
So
so
there will be
they are
modifications.
working on some flexibility, and so I'm also, I just want to point out though, just as, and Jess, you I just want to remind everybody that this discussion right now is
It's for the
on,
diesel bus.
for the bus, for the fuel
Bus
bus, that is
proposition.
the proposition,
Yes.
for the amount, stated in your documents for right now, so nothing we do tonight either,
And it's just
either
one to be voted on.
formulates or prohibits a study or an electric bus next year. And Jess, I appreciate you sort of bringing that back up of are we missing out? We definitely don't want to miss out on the potential savings, but I also think that study, and again, Carrie has shown herself to be a master of finding the funding sources. I'll go over to Jess and then just have everybody in your mind, this bus, not proposition, it's in front of us now. Go ahead, Jess.
To start the study next year, do we have to add it to the budget this year, or we can add it later? So we can just do like an add-on, because like I say, we wanted to do it next September. How's that work?
I was planning on reaching out to my survey now to get
Perfect.
information.
That was my question.
I wasn't gonna wait until July
Yeah.
to start gathering information on how to move forward with it.
Okay, and then like, for example, once we get the info on the study, it would come before us and we can say, oh, this is that, so that's not something that would have to wait to then be in the next budget. Thank you.
Again, really good discussion, it's topical and important ones. Well, it's looming. It's looming, and there's so many questions, and, I would like to have some of those questions in a sort of like on a platter for me. But it's not how life is, but it's okay. All right, hearing no further discussion on this proposition in front of us, all those in favor of accepting the bus proposition as, to put out to voters as written in our documents. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. It's all right, public comment period, for items not on the agenda. Still have no issues. That's okay. No problem. So I'll go over to board member reports and over to you.
So last week, we had our wellness day, and students were able to choose which session they wanted to attend, and the feedback from that was really good. Especially from the past, it wasn't super popular, so I think that everybody was really appreciative of that. We're going in full gears with Mr. AP. The show day is April 20th, little plug, but everybody's working really hard. We're super excited. And last thing, Dr. Franchini already talked about this, but students put flyers out in the community to try and reach more people with the survey. So just keep an eye out for that.
So we had the community engagement, and I believe, but I could not find it, that the One House Senate has approved, correct? We're just waiting on the Assembly. They've approved their budget. Did I totally make that up? I feel like I read that somewhere.
I thought both houses had their one house approved. I thought.
They're both approved?
I
Okay.
thought.
So, So the 3 members that showed up, we appreciate that. They're all in our corner. However, I just want to note that the 3% is still not enough, which is what we originally started meeting with them about, was our fear of the 3%. And that's why they were in the room and they said, you guys were actually ahead of the game and you were in there because we were fighting for more funding back in, I believe it was November, maybe October. We started fighting for more funding then. So sadly, that's what we were fighting for, but it's better than what was just proposed. So so that's good that that's still on track to at least give us something versus the complete deficit. However, on top of the 3 million that you put, we still have the name change issue and the electric bus issue. So those are 2 numbers we weren't included in that amount that he stated. So we really are trying everything that we can right now. I also attended the facility meeting, and the capital project is going well, on track, on budget. And then they're also working on the new capital project, finalizing everything to come out and present to everybody potentially in June, I believe, if I can say that. So that'll be coming out later. And I also signed up to attend Questar's annual meeting, for those of you that don't know, on the 10th. So we will have a presence there. It'll be a long week of meetings between all the boards. But yeah, so I'm curious to see what exactly they present and what their year ahead looks like. So that's what I have.
No remote learning ever. No, I'm just kidding. I'm all set for tonight. Thank you.
I am also all set.
I just want to say I appreciate everybody's, discussion tonight, and I'm also all set.
Really not much to add. Appreciate that I can get through my board report without an emotional breakdown this week, so sorry about that. I want to thank our students, participants for being here. Having a student as a liaison with the board is such a valuable piece of insight into what's happening with the students, and your presence here is so welcome. So thank you very much for being here and for your participation in all of these initiatives with the students. It's very impactful, and we appreciate you. Also want to thank my fellow board members. We don't always need to agree 100% on everything, but we come together and we have these discussions for the benefit of the community that we serve. And I think that even if at the end of it, it's not 100% unanimous, I still think that we did well to have the discussion. I think it's important. So I am grateful to have that and to, hear and be heard. So out there to all the students, keep crushing it. You guys are amazing. Every single one of our kids in this community deserve a handshake and a pat on the back. Love every single one of them, so thank you.
I'm not going to repeat some of my notes that, because Michelle covered it, because I wanted to also mention our community forum with our legislators. So the only one thing that she did not mention, and it's probably because, she was part of that group, they did provide big kudos for our advocacy group, because they said we were early in the game. I know she mentioned that, but she didn't mention that they said that was a great job. So I wanted to make sure that was acknowledged, because it's true. And then the last thing I just want to say, not to repeat anything, is congratulations to our bus garage. It is amazing that we continually get that highest level of safety award, that rating. I think maybe we take it for granted at this point, but there was a time when we didn't receive that. And I think we're in such a good spot in terms of our bus garage and how the folks there care about their job and maintaining this level of award. So appreciate that.
That award is district-wide, wasn't just the bus garage. The one I mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the overall safety award for all.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, it's not just bus garage. Oh,
Yeah.
my mistake.
Yeah, you might think of it.
Yeah.
But them too.
Except-
But them too.
Yeah, so everybody.
But it's
Not just
everybody, yeah.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So kudos to everybody.
I don't have much either except to say that I'm not surprised by any of that because this is, I mean, everybody thinks, you know, if we can show, you know, our kids consistency, and a job well done, then, you know, there's as much as what you guys teach them in terms of content, but then it's what they see. They see more than we often give them credit for. So the way that we carry ourselves, and the sort of the structural excellence that's not, you know, hey, all the kids, you know, Amelia got some really high scores, some presidential, something, I'm minimizing it, but that's amazing. But the fact that we have these expectations we have of ourselves, you know, the students see that whether they realize it or not. And I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Megan said, that just how good this group of people, this board is, just in terms of bringing differently. I used to feel like if I missed something, like somebody points something else, and I would sort of beat myself, I'm like, why didn't I find that typo, or why didn't I? And I just came to realize that, like, if I'm gonna miss that thing, or that can be that's why there's some of us. And I just appreciate everybody's input, because you're gonna catch something that I missed, and Jess is gonna acknowledge that Megan doesn't have, and Jackie's gonna, but like, you guys, everyone's just putting something, and today was a really good example of that. It was really good, and it's a lot to think about. And thankfully, you guys have to like crunch it all into the operational and trust check boxes, in a way that you just have to get it explained to us, so I appreciate that. That's it, that's all I have. We have Megan first and Jackie second to adjourn. All those in favor? All those in favor of adjourn? That is unanimous as well. Good night, you guys. Thank you. I cleaned up the email. I'm gonna check.